Welcome to Williamsport City Council meeting. It's April 12th. Please rise for invocation by Councilman Allison, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we come to you thankful tonight and grateful for all the blessings we experience and have and live in this nation. When so many others in the world are suffering and experiencing destitution and war and deprivation of all kinds. And Father, this week, it's a holy week for many, where there's Passover and Easter celebrated. We think of those two celebrations. One, a celebration of freedom from bondage, of giving a new future, and the other, a celebration of resurrection and life and a hope. These are things we desperately need in our world today. And we pray, Lord, that you would help us as individuals, as groups of people, as families, as neighborhoods, to do these things, Lord, to love one another, to help one another, to encourage one another, to sacrifice for one another, to put down our own self-interests that others could be benefited by that, to put down our own pride that others could experience self-worth and benefit from a helping hand. Help us to do that here. We look at the world and feel that we can't change things far away from us, but we live in a city and we live in neighborhoods. Help us to do those things. Whether we're believers of one particular faith or another, we can all sacrifice, give of ourselves, and love one another. And at this time of year, we pray that you'll help us to do those things. And I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you, Mr. Allison. Next item on the agenda is approval of City Council meeting minutes dated March 30th, 2017. Can I have a motion and a second to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Dr. Williamson.
Yes, and those minutes are approved. Next item is limited courtesy of the floor. We've had no request for that this evening, so we can move on to our next item, which is makes it my privilege to honor some young people from the city of Williamsport who've accomplished some really great things over the last almost year in their work towards Odyssey of the Mind. And so let me ask the coaches to approach the bench, and then they're more than welcome to invite up all the kids as well. And while they're headed up that way, let me tell you a little bit about why they're there and why they're here and why we should really applaud what they do. Odyssey of the Mind, I should also say, for full disclosure, I'm a parent of a couple of the kids out here, and not only get to celebrate their success as president of council and representing my colleagues, but also be a proud daddy. The Odyssey of the Mind is as many people here will know, is hard to describe, but the easiest way I've come up with it is it's a creative problem-solving competition. And these kids and many others in Lycoming County and across Pennsylvania, across the country and across the world, start work around the beginning of the school year on solving a complex open-ended, long-term problem, and developing their critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and their teamwork and leadership skills. And then around about March, in regions all over the country and all over the world, they get together in their regions and compete and demonstrate their solutions to those problems, and also have to solve a problem off the spur of the moment in something they call spontaneous. Again, developing those really important skills that will make the leaders that will sit in these seats and those seats in the future. It's a competition, and so after you are at regionals, the winners of those at the regional level then go on to a state level all across the country and again around the world, and then the winners who do that again a month, 6 weeks later at the state level are then invited to attend the World Finals, this year being held at Michigan State University in the East Lansing. In the city of Williamsport this year, I'm proud to say we have 3 teams that have made it to that World Finals competition. One of the teams that I invited to come tonight was not able to make it, and so let me first start by applauding the success of the St. John Newman Regional Academy team. This is Division III, which means it's a high school level, and they worked on the long-term solution problem 2 called Autobot. You'd have to ask them what that means. Their coach is Kathy Baer, and let me just, for their sakes, maybe some of them are watching at home, tell you that the team members are Casey Garrity, Natalie Kolzinski, sorry Natalie if I got that wrong, Adelaide Matz, Raina Matz, Casey McKempson, and Kendra Snyder. And they got first place in their problem for their division in the state of Pennsylvania, competing against probably 50 or 60 other teams who had all advanced from their regions all across the state and competing at their own regional level. So it's a great level of success to be the top out of Pennsylvania, which is one of the most competitive states in the country. So let's applaud their success, first of all. And I'd like to then turn it over to our coaches. First, Brett, I just blanked.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brett from representing the Curtin Intermediate School team.
I'm Brett Southard, and along with my wife Denise, it's been our great honor and privilege to coach the kids from Andrew G. Curtin Middle School. As Dr. Williamson says, we started in September. These kids have put in hundreds of hours of work to developing their solution to compete at the regional and the state and now the world tournament. And what's remarkable about it is a couple of things. These are all very, very smart kids. They're involved, they've got difficult coursework even at the middle school level. They're in scouts, they're playing instruments, they're playing sports. So it's no small commitment they make to the Odyssey program to be able to compete at the high level that they competed at. With Odyssey, you've got 5 different problems that you're able to choose from. You can build a robot, like apparently St. John Newman did. You can build a vehicle. You can choose to see how much weight you can put on balsa wood, which is basically putting an anvil on popsicle sticks. Or you can do a skit, and they at Curtin choose to do a humorous skit. And it was pretty funny. The judges were laughing. At regional in Berwick, they went up against 8 other teams and placed first. At state finals in Pittsburgh, they went up against 16 other teams and placed first, making them the state champions of their problem and of their division. Another neat thing about Odyssey is the kids do the work. As coaches, we're allowed to facilitate, but the kids do the work. They screw every screw, they drive every nail, they build every prop, they write every line. They do it all. And in that spirit, I'd like to have Tyler Williamson come up and introduce your team.
I told you I got to be a proud papa. Hello, Mr. Williamson. Could you give your name and address for the record? Seriously.
Also on my Andrew G. Curtin team, Reese Kirk,
Stand up, please.
Come on up, Reese.
Liliana Sponhouse, Alana Ramos, Olivia Chavatari, Ross Mailer, and Mirren Tran.
Congratulations, you guys, to your success, and good luck at Worlds. Let's give them a round of applause. Would you or any of your teammates like to say anything for the television?
Nope.
I think they've nominated you, Tyler. See the camera, it's right over there. Don't be nervous.
Me and my 6 teammates have worked really hard to go to Worlds, and it was an honor to get first place in regionals and states of OM Odyssey of the Mind.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. And then representing the team from Williamsport Area High School is Max Moore. And the other proud part of this, I think, for those who've seen Max in the past, he's one of the few people in Williamsport that have been to World Finals twice himself when he was representing Williamsport Area High School. And I can also say that he's a student of mine as a poli-sci major at Lycoming College. So.
I am here on behalf of the Williamsport Area High School Classics team. They are coached by Spring Moore and Heather LeBlanc, who unfortunately could not be here tonight because they have parent-teacher conferences at Williamsport Area High School. But I am here on their behalf to congratulate this team on their outstanding accomplishment. Brett mentioned the different problems of OM. They chose the classics problem, which is to put on a performance that incorporates some form of classical art or architecture or literature. Their problem this year was to portray the creation of 2 different famous works of art and then 1 futuristic work of art that the team created themselves, and to show that all of those works of art were inspired by Omer, who is the raccoon mascot of Odyssey of the Mind. This team has been working since late September, early October, somewhere in there. As Brett said, they've put in hundreds of hours. They're involved in countless other extracurricular activities. And the breadth of this accomplishment cannot be understated. They placed first at regionals, and then they came in second at states, which gave them the right to compete at World Finals. They're World Finalists. World Finals composes of about 820 other teams from around the world. About 30 different states and 24 different countries will be represented. So it's at Michigan State this year. It's an absolutely awesome opportunity. Both of these teams are products of what's quickly becoming a very successful program at Williamsport Area School District. These are the 7th and 8th teams that our school district will be sending to World Finals, and 7 of those have occurred in the past 5 years alone. So Odyssey of the Mind, they're doing a lot of great things at Williamsport Area School District. And as Dr. Williamson mentioned, St. John Newman is also sending a team. So we're really blessed to have a wonderful program in this area. Madison, if you would like to come up and introduce your teammates.
Ms. Williamson, your name and address for the record, please.
Hi. Oh gosh. My team comprises of Paige Diabelco, Charlotte DeBlois, Ariana Stafford, Daisy LeBlanc, and Carly Weber, and Hannah Hausman, who couldn't be here tonight.
On behalf of City Council, congratulations to you and your success as well.
Thank you.
And since I offered it to the younger guys, would any of you like to comment? A couple things that I should say is it's kind of particularly neat to have the Odyssey of the Mind teams in. We've done this a couple different times when teams from the area have gone to World Finals. One of the things that's particularly noteworthy is there are a number of members of the Williamsport city government who've had children and grandchildren participate in this, and I know at regionals, I've seen the mayor with his kids. From our fire department, Mr. Weber's here with his daughter on World Final team, and I think, Mr. Grado, I've seen you at one of these competitions before. Is that correct? I'm probably missing some others. So it's a really community-oriented thing. I've got colleagues in the room from the college, I think I've seen you at one of these things before, yeah. So it's a really community-oriented thing and something to be proud of as an entire community. Comments from my colleagues on council?
Just proud of these kids. They're incredible. To do everything that you do, we really are proud of all your accomplishments.
Thank you.
And go teams.
And then finally, one thing I would say is the St. John Newman team, the Curtin team, the Williamsport area high school team, it takes quite a bit of money to send those teams to Michigan. As a parent, I'm very happy to note that the school district has been very supportive in a lot of ways, but financially included, to be able to make that possible. But I know each of the team in its various ways in a very short amount of time is trying to raise money. I'm going to try to get the information to the city clerk on how St. John Newman's team is raising their funds. I know the Williamsport teams are doing GoFundMe and some other efforts. And so if you're interested in helping getting these kids and their families to Michigan, please call the city clerk and she'll get you information on how to help them out. So thank you, everybody, and go win worlds, I guess. Y'all have a good evening, and I'm sorry, Mr. Allison, Mr. Smith, did you have anything further to add?
I think it's so heartwarming, really, to see such a good group of smart, intelligent, and motivated young people. You know, many times we hear that, well, young people, they seem to lack motivation, and they don't seem to be hardworking and willing to get things done. But we see here a great group of young people that are motivated. So not only are they very intelligent, but they're also motivated to put that intelligence to work. And that's something great that we can really be proud of our young people in the area. So I say thank you very much. Thank you to the coaches who help. I know that you facilitate it, and without that, it wouldn't be possible. So we really do appreciate all the work that the coaches do, and we really appreciate the young people that we have. Thank you.
Mr. Allison.
I would just add, and I think others have pretty much addressed it as well, it just speaks so well of our local schools, public and private, in Williamsport, and the opportunities that they provide for students in such a wide array of different areas, be it like Odyssey of the Mind, the creative things, the music, the arts, the sports, as well as a great traditional education that, again, reaches into areas that I never dreamed of when I was that age, but we're just proud of that as well, and these representatives of that educational process. So kudos to everybody all around.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. President, members of the City Council. I'd just like to briefly say we are very, very proud of you. Thank you, parents, coaches, staff, and I think it would be appropriate if we would stand and give them a round of applause.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Teams and your parents and coaches, you're welcome to stay. It's a riveting experience to be a part of a city council meeting. But you note the door's not locked, so you don't have to. And so the room will clear. We'll give them a second. Just I never understand why they don't want to stay.
They're
that-
very intelligent, obviously.
What does that tell you about us? So next item on the agenda is appointments. We have a couple appointments, three appointments, I'm sorry, this evening, a reappointment, two appointments. One, I'll note, needed to be rescheduled. Dieter Reichman on Harb will be rescheduled for a future meeting. Let me indicate, so the reappointment we have is Mary Lou Baldes to the Zoning Hearing Board, who will be reappointed for a 3-year term commencing here in April, with 2 new appointments to the Zoning Hearing Board. Janet McDermott of 900 Louisa Street, appointed to a 3-year term commencing April 12th, 2017, and Michelle Fry, who's here, of 2510 West 4th Street, will be appointed to a 3-year term commencing on April 12th, 2017. Can I have a motion and a second to approve this reappointment and these reappointments?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second. I believe this would have,
Finance meeting.
I'm sorry?
The Finance.
Finance Committee. And so, Mr. Allison, could you speak about the conversations you had with these appointments?
Yes, we did speak to, attending were Mary Lou Baldes, Janet McDermott, and Michelle Fry, who's present tonight. And we had a really interesting and in-depth to a matter of degree conversation from different perspectives, but from Mary Lou Baldes as a 20-year member of the zoning board, and her perspective on that, and what zoning is all about, and she laid those building blocks out, and then Michelle and Janet both gave us some information about their background and why they're interested, and we had a good back and forth conversation, and I think we know Mary Lou, she's a already approved commodity, but in the Janet and Michelle, we have 2 very fine representatives of our community that acquitted themselves quite well, and I think are going to do a great job on the zoning board.
Thank you very much. And is there a vote to recommend?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was unanimous.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions of members of council? Hearing none. Mrs. Frank on all 3 appointments.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Boy, I feel like bookends here. Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Dr. Williamson.
Yes, and those appointments are approved. And Mrs. Fry, if you would like, we can go ahead and have the swearing in right now. Things do go quicker when there's only 4 voting. Going to be on your ball.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm. I do solemnly swear or affirm. That I will support, obey, and defend. That I will support, obey, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of this Commonwealth. And the Constitution of this Commonwealth. And I will discharge the duties. Of my office with fidelity.
And let me.
You got to sign.
Oh, go ahead and sign out. I'll wait. And let me be the first to thank you for offering to serve and welcoming you into city governance. And if there's anything that we can do as city council to help facilitate that, do please let us know. All right, thank you. And as I said to them, you're welcome to stay. As you know, it's riveting. Oh, yeah. Well, now the door's locked. You lost your shot. No, I'm kidding. All right, next item on the agenda then is ordinance and final reading authorizing the issuance of a general obligation note. Can I have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance in second reading?
So move.
Second.
Hearing motion and a second. Mr. Nichols, how are you this evening? Sorry, I didn't give you fair warning.
This ordinance is on second reading, and it authorizes the issuance of a general obligation note in the amount of $5 million. This is a renewal of a revolving line of credit with M&T Bank, and it provides bridge financing for various grants, specifically the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program and various projects associated with that. And this line of credit is required to be in place because they are reimbursement type grants, and the contract with the Commonwealth calls for this line of credit to be in place. So,
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions in final reading? Mr. Smith?
When we looked at this 2 weeks ago, I had looked over this contract, and some of the things I didn't quite understand in here. So what I actually did is I took this contract to a competing bank and had them look at it. And in essence, you know, the contract is a contract for whatever you want to call it, a line of credit, revolving line of credit, and a loan. It is quite convoluted, another banker had said. It's not a simple put-together contract. However, they felt that there was not really an issue with it. Some of the areas, as I pointed out, they call it a line of credit one place, a revolving line of credit another place, and they call it a loan. And there is some difficulty in really defining these things. And that was my concern a couple of weeks ago about the difference between a loan and a line of credit, and then you have a revolving line of credit. So I guess it is what it is. It's a convoluted type of contract. I guess the question that was brought out by another council member, and I just want to get that clear in my mind. Some of this money is going to be used to pay vendors, apparently, because we have not received money from the state. Is that correct?
then, I mean, contractors that were part of the RACB grant,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. And what is that total amount that, and the length of time that we have been waiting from the state? I know you brought that up a couple weeks ago. I didn't write it down. I'd just like to have that for future knowledge.
Which specific dates? There have been various drawdowns from the line of credit. There were other funding sources. It was a $12 million project, so this only represents $3 million of the $12 million project. So we were able to access other funding until we had to, so we tried to keep that
How
more.
much does the state owe us?
For the, I
That
put it
that
in my
we're putting-
memo, which is
Did I hear like $3 million before?
$3 million for Trade and Transit 2, or Destination 2014.
For Trade and Transit too, right? And then
Correct.
how long has that, but we've been waiting for those dollars to come in? Did I hear 2 or 3 years?
No, 6 months.
How long?
6 months. A little over 6 months, probably.
Okay, so am I correct on this? We're waiting for about $3 million to come in 6 months. Is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. I guess, you know, I brought this out many, many times before. I guess I get concerned about the fact that, you know, you go out and you spend money, and you really, it's supposed to come in, and what concerns me a lot is the issue of the state indebtedness now and the current budget that they're facing. You know, I guess they can put anything on paper that they promise to pay you, but what happens if they don't pay you? Well, I'm going to vote for this, but I think one of the statements that I'm going to make is I guess I'm voting on it with a condition that if for some reason we don't receive that money from the state and that money is being used to pay vendors or whatever, in the future, I will not vote under any circumstances for a tax increase or increase in fees to make up for that money. And the reason that I say that is because I don't believe that you've got that money till you've got a check in your hand. And the old statement goes, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And knowing how Harrisburg operates, I just feel very uneasy, let's say, about putting this money out and hoping that the state's going to pay us. And yes, as you pointed out before, Mr. Nichols, they have paid us in the past. That's true. That doesn't mean they're going to pay us in the future, though. So as I pointed out, I will vote yes on this with the condition that if we don't get that money, I'm not going to have taxpayers coughing up that money for these projects that we thought we were going to be paid for. So thank you for the information.
Just a comment on that. Through the various funding sources from the federal government, state government, local foundation, a number of innovative sources of revenue that the city was able to secure for various economic development projects. We were able to leverage over $100 million worth of economic development projects. So if you take the view that never take a grant that is reimbursable, then you'll never have any economic development.
I understand that, but you also have to understand that the state is under the worst financial condition it's ever been in, ever. The amount it's owed on pensions, and I understand that, and I voted in the past.
But again,
to
the
do
sources,
these.
if you read the paperwork associated with this is not money that comes out of the general fund from the state. This is secured by bonds that are floated through general obligation type bonds. So they are secured by bonds and pledged towards these projects. So there is no chance that the state would not reimburse us.
Let's hope that. Let's hope that's the case.
Want to bet $3 million?
Would you want to sign a contract that you'll pay it if we don't get it? Would you guarantee that?
Next item on the agenda? No.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Allison?
Along that line, Mr. Nichols, so just to be clear, the RACB money is essentially, it's there. It just hasn't been dispersed?
Correct.
Would that be a correct understanding then?
Yes, it's a bond type program. The state is authorized to float so many bonds per year for this program. So again, we're in line to get reimbursed. That money is there. And if you know the requirements associated with it, starts with an application, a pre-application, an application, then a series of special conditions, which are numerous. The complexity of this particular project, because it involved a number of revenue sources, did make it much more difficult. You know, if it was just one funding source, like the Bowman Field project, for example, was one source of funds that funded the first base project, which matched the RACB funds. Very simple, much straightforward. But when you have a number of funding sources and trying to integrate all that with the state, it does provide more complexity and a little bit more time. And they hire an engineering firm to review each project that's RACB funded. And in this case, it was HRG. And so they come up and they do monitoring reviews and they do their reports. Those reports are filtered down through to the Office of the Budget. Then they have to review everything again. and everything then is submitted electronically. And then, again, it goes through a series of reviews till you finally get authorization to be reimbursed, which takes anywhere from 45 to 60 days. So we're now in that 45 to 60-day period. Hopefully, it's only 30 days now till we get the funding.
Okay, because it's not really contingent on them setting their budget by the end of June.
No. It's not associated with the operating budget whatsoever. You know, I can give you sort of a thorough review of the process. It starts with authorization in the state capital budget, which takes time. And this particular line item related to downtown revitalization was a line item that was placed in the state capital budget and approved by the legislature back in 2006. So you have to have first an eligible line item, and then the application needs to be approved, and then the bonds are floated, and then you're reimbursed eventually, you know, at the tail end of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Mrs. Katz?
So you're saying that this started in 2006?
The line item for this
The line
particular project was placed in the state capital budget in 2006, correct?
I don't think people realize how long it takes for
It
things
takes forever.
to just go through all the process.
Right.
I mean, the paperwork and the people involved. I mean, it's just incredible. But I mean, you've been doing this for a good many years, and you realize the track that this takes, and it always has come through. Maybe not exactly the time limit that you wanted, but it does come through. And I just find it amazing, and I think everybody else does, how slow this process is.
It's a very slow process. There's not a state capital budget every year. It depends on the governor and what's going on in the state. If they don't want to float as many bonds in a particular year because of the cost associated with that, then they may not. Sometimes it takes 3 years to get a state capital budget, and then you work with your legislator to introduce that particular line item, which has to be voted on by both houses. So, I mean, it just takes a long time to get to the tail end.
Just to remember what you have in that grant process. Sometimes you have to go back on that paperwork constantly.
Constantly.
To remember where everything is,
And there's closeout, which is another long process.
which we've gone through, yeah. Thank you.
Just by comparison, to give us an example, Bowman Field, which is a fairly new project, when was that that line inserted into the state capital budget?
That goes back to 2000, I think pre-2006. There was a series of line items back in 2002. It's either 2002 or 2006, and it was specifically entitled Bowman Field Cross-Gutter / Bowman Field Renovation Project.
And that's a standard practice, I think, you know, working with legislatures the legislature to anticipate the future need.
Right.
And then you begin to work on the framework of the project itself, which can evolve over time, and then ultimately have an actual project.
And that was actually a $5 million line item, the authorization. Obviously, we didn't get that amount approved, but there's still room in that particular authorization to seek additional funding down the road, which is a positive thing as well.
Mr. Mayor, did you have something?
To the Destination 2014 project, we were able to use the line item from 2006 because I asked Steve Capelli to put that in for an arena, and we were able to leverage that with that line item. But yes, it takes a long time. It is a long process. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comments on the ordinance and final reading? Hearing none, Mrs. Frank.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes, and the ordinance is
Thank
approved.
you.
in Final reading. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Next item on the agenda is ordinance amending Article 525 towing in final reading. Can I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Mary, motion and a second. In these final readings, I've been skipping Mrs. Frank's reading. Ms. Norm, is that all right? In a final reading, not to have it publicly read? Okay, short form, please.
An ordinance amending Article 525, towing, impounding, and disposal of abandoned vehicles.
And I had a motion and a second on approving that in the final reading. Chief Young, how are you this evening?
Good evening, Mr. President, council members. Before using an amendment to the ordinance, section 525.05F, in which the last sentence added to read as follows: "The city of Williamsport will not charge a towing fee from the towing company when the vehicle towed is part of a criminal investigation and the owner is the victim of the crime."
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this in final reading? Mr. Smith?
This is another item that 2 weeks ago I had asked some questions about and had reservations about eliminating the fee. And again, when we go back, this was originally passed, and I don't have the vote, but the majority of council passed this with the knowledge that $75 was in there to help recoup the cost of the police officers processing the vehicle return, and so forth. And as I brought out, there are 3 types of stolen vehicles. Yes, according to criminal law, the person that had their vehicle stolen had a crime committed and they were a victim. Although after I've had time to think about this, as far as the ordinance goes, I don't agree with that. As far as criminally goes, yeah, that's true. I don't believe in someone leaving their keys in the car and a car unlocked and the car is stolen. Yes, they have been a victim of a crime, but as far as the $75 goes, that's a processing fee to get the vehicle back. And whether you want to say they were a victim or not, for the ordinance, that's debatable. One of the issues that I know we've had to deal with in the last few months was an issue with a zoning ordinance. And it was brought out to change this zoning ordinance to, as Mr. Allison pointed out, to fix a problem. And it was chosen not to fix the problem with the ordinance. And I'm just wondering here, are we looking at fixing a problem? And what I thought about over the last couple of weeks is that it was brought out that it was also asked if this could be retroactive back to January. So I'm thinking, this sounds like we're fixing a problem here that has occurred. So one of the things I did bring out, which I didn't have a lot of knowledge about a couple weeks ago, was whether insurance will pay for this or not. So today I talked to one of the largest insurers on the East Coast, and they sent me information. And a person that has collision and comprehensive on their vehicle, it will pay it. It's called additional payments with no deductible applies to additional payments. If comprehensive coverage and/or collision coverage are purchased, we will pay all reasonable expenses necessary to return your stolen auto we insure. Along with that, they will also reimburse you for many other things: travel costs, if your car was stolen and you were away, loss of personal effects, your luggage if it was owned by you and the vehicle. Based on these facts and in talking to some other people, I just have a problem with taking this $75 out. I think, again, we're trying to fix a problem. I think that under the ordinance, if something like this happens, the insurance company is going to pay it unless you don't have either comprehensive or collision. If your car is a modern vehicle, you'll probably have that on it. So based on that information and people that I've talked to, I can't support this amendment to this ordinance. I don't feel it's right. I feel that we spent a lot of time drafting this ordinance. Council initially approved the $75 fee. We've not had any issues up until this point. and I think it's just a way to fix a problem that occurred. So I will not be supporting this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Other comments or questions? Mr. Allison.
I understand Councilman Smith's point. And I don't think at the time, at least to my recollection, because I was on public safety at the time, that at least I didn't envision this in the context of a stolen vehicle. I was thinking more of abandoned vehicles or illegally parked vehicles, because that was a lot of our conversation. And so, yeah, initially, you know, when we heard that stolen vehicles were being charged this, and the insurance point, that is a good point, but sometimes people that wouldn't have collision or comprehensive don't have it because of the cost. And so then I wonder, then we're really just charging those maybe who can least afford the $75. So you give me something else to think about, but you know, I'm trying to process it in the context of everything we're doing. And I guess the other piece of information was that we don't have a lot of these, so.
Yes, 2014, there was 21 reported stolen vehicles, 2015, 19, 2016, 24, and year-to-date has been 9.
Okay. So I quickly considering all of that, I'm going to still support it, yeah.
Thank you. Other comments or questions, Mrs. Katz?
It is food for thought with the insurance company, but on the other hand, you're probably right. The person that's being charged is probably the person that doesn't carry that coverage. And you don't want that person to be victimized twice for something. I think we have a lot of towing that's done for other acts, and that, you know, the minimal amount of stolen vehicles, from what the chief is saying, is really minimal. And I don't see a problem with this. I really don't. I think just in good conscience, I mean, you don't want a victim to be victimized twice.
Ms. Mealy?
Yeah, by my calculation, I think we took in something like $21,000 then with the towing ordinance at $75 a vehicle last year. So that would be 280 individual tows. We're talking about less than 10% of those related to victim of crime tows. And I think along the lines of hating to see us, as Ms. Katz put it rather eloquently, victimize somebody twice for a crime, and especially penalize perhaps the least well-off in our community for something that really isn't their fault. I'll be inclined to continue supporting this. But I appreciate the point, Mr. Smith, and I very much appreciate your research. Thank you very much.
The one thing I would add, because I agree and do appreciate the, basically challenging us to think more deeply about this, building on what Mr. Allison in particular said, I suppose the one other thing that you commented on that made me think was the issue of, is this, as he, I think, termed it, correcting a problem, especially if we're trying to make it retroactive. And I think usually when things come to our attention and we make changes, it's because of some particular issue where we think the outcome was not the desired outcome. And I think, the point is right. The law is the law. And if in January, February, March, somebody, and I even asked a follow-up question 2 weeks ago about this, but you've made me think more about it. If the law was what it was when a car was stolen in the first 3 months or so of the year, they're going to have to pay it whether I like it or not, because that's what the law was. That doesn't mean once we see something that did not meet the intention of I think, I can't remember exactly when it was, but most of us were here and were part of those conversations that Mr. Allison talked about. If we see that we made a mistake or that a prior council made a mistake, that we then shouldn't correct it for future instances. And so the idea that Ms. Katz brought up of a second victimization, especially for the people who have older cars, which is, and usually less expensive cars, are the ones that don't have collision, maybe because they can't afford it. I think that's another layer of why I'll continue to support it tonight. So any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Mrs. Frank on the ordinance and final reading.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes, and the ordinance does pass in final reading. Next item on the agenda is a resolution that was tabled from last meeting. I believe because of our, just to introduce it, because we passed the general obligation note ordinance and final reading, if I understand what we talked about 2 weeks ago correctly, there's now no longer a need for the lease agreement. If that's true, can I get a nod? Yes, I get a nod. And so then from a formality standpoint, I'll ask for a motion and a second to remove this from the table, not actually expecting to hear one. May I have a motion and a second to remove this from the table?
So moved.
Second. Did we have to do that?
No, well, we can, but I wasn't expecting to actually hear one. But maybe do you want to talk about it?
No.
There's really nothing to say about
Yeah,
it. because it's been-
I didn't think so, but to follow procedure, you made a motion in a second, which means we get to vote on whether or not we want to talk about it. You could withdraw your motion in a second.
Withdraw.
That's fine. We don't need to talk about it.
Okay, so you're withdrawing your motion? Okay, good. Phew. It's hard to follow these rules. Okay, so let me ask again, do I hear a motion and a second to remove this from the table? I hear none, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, everybody satisfied?
How long are we going to
Great.
ignore the big white elephant?
And by the way, for the record, Mark, in case you're as confused as I am right now, we're getting the 2018 Freightliner truck, we're just paying for it differently in a way that saves us money. Yes, okay. So we'll leave that on the table forever. And now we can move on to item number 10 on the agenda. This is a resolution for destruction of specific records in human resources. Mrs. Frank, please.
Disposition resolution for destruction of specific records. Should I continue?
That's fine. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution, please?
So move.
Second.
Hear a motion and a second. How are you this evening, Mr.
Good.
Fabel?
How are you, Mr. President?
Confused, but I think I'll be all right.
Okay. This resolution is a standard resolution for destruction of records. Under our policy, any destruction must come before City Council, and the new Human Resources Director has been going through the office and found some records eligible for destruction. The two items are in the category of time cards and attendance records from the years 2005 through 2013, and the category of applications for employment for non-hired individuals from 1998 through 2014.
And I'm trying to remember, did this go to committee?
No.
I didn't think so. So comments or questions from members of council? Hearing none, this is and should be a routine kind of thing. One thing I would say is get well soon, because otherwise Megan would be here this evening, but she is feeling what sounds like really, really under the weather. So we'll wish the best for her. Hearing no comments, Ms. Frank on the resolution, please.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes, and that is approved. Next item on the agenda is a subdivision lot add-on for 201 Hepburn Street. Mr. Narr.
Good evening, Dr. Williamson and members of council. What I present to you tonight is a one-lot subdivision from Stamen Brothers Incorporated. The proposed plan is to subdivide a total of 13,565 square feet from the residual and add it to a separate parcel, creating that new parcel to be 2.2169 acres after the subdivision. The residual lot will contain approximately 5.1686 acres. At this point in time, what that's to do is to provide rear access to the property, because as of right now, their boundary lines are right up to that. It gives them that access to have that area in there. It did go before planning and county planning as well, and both made positive recommendation for your approval.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion and a second to approve these
So moved.
Second.
subdivision lot add-on? Hearing a motion and a second. Comments or questions from members of council? Hearing none, Mrs. Frank, please.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes, and that is approved. Next item on the agenda is lot consolidation for 1315 West 3rd Street. Mr. Narr.
What I present to you is a four-lot consolidation. The owner of the property is Andrew C. Hooker. What he's proposing is he owns the 4 parcels. Because he does utilize that as one for one use, it is a requirement to consolidate all those 4 for that use. And at that point, it did go through Lycoming County Planning as well as City Planning. Both made positive recommendation for your approval.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the lot consolidation?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second. Comments or questions? Ms. Mealy?
These are 4 very odd parcels, Mr. Narr. I just wanted to be clear that I was understanding. It looks as though perhaps there were 2 right-of-ways that ran through the property at some point, and then...
At one point in time, that is correct.
Okay. I kept looking at the lot lines thinking, I must be misinterpreting.
And what I've been trying to do is, throughout the city, there's a ton of them that are like that. When we go through where someone purchases a property, we take a look at it, and at that point, require them, under the ordinance, to consolidate them because it is for one primary use.
Okay. No other questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Mrs. Frank, please.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes, and the lot consolidation is approved. Next item on the agenda is accept for filing. We have the Controller's Report of February 2017, Public Works meeting minutes of January 10th, 2017, and Veterans Memorial Park meeting minutes of February and March 2017. Can I have a motion and a second to approve these?
So moved. Second.
Hearing a motion and a second. Comments or questions? Hearing none. Mrs. Frank, please.
Ms. Mealy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes, and those are approved. Next item on the agenda is announcements. The next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held on Thursday, April 27th, back on Thursday, by the way, at 7:30 in City Hall Council Chambers. Tonight, immediately following this meeting, there will be a police pension board meeting, and immediately following that, a very brief executive session on a matter of personnel. Other upcoming meetings include on Thursday, that would be tomorrow, April 13th at 2 p.m., a training on the website. Friday, City Hall is closed for the Easter holiday, Good Friday and Easter holiday. On Monday, April 17th at noon is the Planning Commission meeting. Tuesday, April 18th at 10 a.m. is Blighted Property, 4 p.m. is at 10 a.m. is the Blighted Property Committee and the Economic Revitalization Committee meeting, separate meetings here in City Hall. At 4 p.m. is the Brandon Park Commission and the Shade Tree Commission, which is a joint meeting, and at 6:30 p.m. Is HARB. On Thursday, busy day that day. On Thursday, April 20th at 10:30 a.m. is the Zoning Hearing Board, and at 4 p.m. is the Board of Health. Monday, April 24th at 4 p.m. is Recreation Commission. And Tuesday, April 25th at noon is Public Works Committee meeting, and at 3:30 is Finance Committee. On Wednesday, April 26th at 11:30 is the Redevelopment Authority, and at 5:30 is Summit Up, Heart of Williamsport Cochran Elementary School. That sounds interesting. Oh, that's at Cochrane Elementary. Okay, well, we should attend there. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Are there comments from members of council? Hearing none, Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ellison.
We had a very wonderful, happy, and successful Easter egg hunt in Brandon Park on Saturday. Lots of kids and lots of parents and lots of eggs and lots of fun. All the children were, as far as I saw and heard, well-behaved, well-mannered, a lot of thank yous and a lot of appreciation from those. And kudos to our recreation director, who's not here tonight, but she did a bang-up job organizing it and had lots of help from different people. Too many to mention, but it was successful, and we had great weather.
Thank goodness for that. Other comments from members of council? Mayor, your administration? Okay, thank you. Mr. Silla?
Good evening. Just for the sake of TV purposes, April 24, Monday, we will begin our 3-week spring cleanup. And so we just ask people to get their stuff out. Don't abuse the process. You know, this isn't for someone to cut down a 80-foot oak tree in their yard and put out by the curb. This is a general cleanup, and that will begin on Monday, April 24. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the general public? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.